Hello and a very warm welcome to Science Monitor, your weekly update on what's happening in the field of science, technology, research and innovation in and around the country. I am Tina Jha. From an anti-COVID drug developed by Indian scientists to a user-friendly PPE ventilation system, we have plenty in store for you on this edition of Science Monitor. But as always, let's begin with the headlines. DRDO-INMAS develops anti-COVID therapeutic application of 2-deoxy-D-glucose. DCGI approves the drug for emergency use. Many COVID hospitals received the first consignment of this drug. Pune-based startup develops an economical ventilation system for PPE kit users, supported by Department of Science and Technology. This innovation will provide a great relief to the frontline COVID warriors. And we'll be joined by Dr. Naresh Dua, a critical care specialist at Sir Gangaram Hospital, New Delhi, to talk about some crucial questions regarding COVID and post-COVID complications and the palliative care approach. And now the news in detail. Taking a step further in the war against the novel coronavirus, scientists at DRDO's Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences have developed an indigenous anti-COVID drug. The drug, called 2DG, is a derivative of glucose and will reduce the recovery time and oxygen dependency in COVID patients by hampering the growth of the virus. After satisfactory clinical trials, the drug was approved by DCGI for emergency use, and the Union Defence Minister, Rajnath Singh, released the first batch of the drug at a ceremony this week. More details in this report.
In the midst of the outbreak of the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, India has achieved a major breakthrough. The first anti-COVID drug developed by the Defence Research and Development Organisation, DRDO, was launched on the 17th of May at the DRDO headquarters in New Delhi. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Union Minister of Science and Technology, Earth Sciences, Health and Family Welfare Dr. Harshvardhan launched the first batch of the indigenous drug 2-deoxy-D-glucose or 2DG. The drug has been developed by DRDO's Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences, INMAS, in collaboration with Hyderabad-based Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. After a successful Phase 3 trial, the Drugs Controller General of India has approved the emergency use of 2DG. This medicine, prepared in the form of sachets, is administered after being dissolved in water. It can greatly reduce the virus load in patients.
यह आशा और उम्मीद की एक नई किरण लेकर आया है। यानी हमारे देश के सामने यदि बड़ा से बड़ा कोई चैलेंज आए तो हमारे वैज्ञानिकों के अंदर वो क्षमता है, वो ताकत है, उसका मुकाबला वो कर सकते हैं। और जो ड्रग का इजाद किया गया है, मैं समझता हूं कि हमारे देश के वैज्ञानिकों की एक जो साइंटिफिक कैपेबिलिटी है, उसकी भी एक मिसाल है, उसका भी एक उदाहरण है। और जब भी हमारे देश को जरूरत पड़ी, जब मैं रक्षा मंत्रालय का दायित्व नहीं संभाल रहा था, तब से मैं जानता हूं DRDO ने बहुत ही अहम भूमिका का निर्वाह किया है।
The 2-deoxy-D-glucose or 2DG drug is actually an altered form of glucose molecule and is used in the treatment of tumors and cancer cells. During the first wave of the novel coronavirus, DRDO-INMAS scientists started researching the drug and found it effective against the COVID-19 infection. When a virus gains entry into our body, it uses the machinery and energy of our cells to replicate. Drug 2DG will interrupt this process. Like glucose, cells will readily accept 2DG molecule, but unlike glucose, 2DG will inhibit the process of energy release. This will prevent the virus from growing, and will also reduce oxygen consumption in the cells. By stopping the growth of the virus, the drug will help the patient to recover faster, and at the same time the patient will also be less dependent on external oxygen. According to scientists, the selective accumulation of drug in infected cells makes the drug special, as all variants of the virus use the same mechanism to grow and replicate, so the drug should be effective against all the variants.
उन सेल्स में जहां जाकर वायरस अपना प्रकोप तेज़ी से बढ़ाने का प्रयास करता है, वहीं पर ये किस प्रकार से सेलेक्टिवली दवा पहुंचेगी, वहां पर वायरस के सिंथेसिस को कैसे ये रोक पाएगी, वहां पर एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन को कैसे जो है रोक पाएगी, और एक प्रकार से पॉजिटिवली जो अभी तक के रिज़ल्ट्स हैं, जो हमारा ठीक होने का समय है उसको कम कर पाएगी, ऑक्सीजन के ऊपर डिपेंडेंस को कम कर पाएगी। तो मुझे आज के इस अवसर पर वैज्ञानिकों को बधाई देते हुए भगवान से ये भी प्रार्थना करनी है कि ये जिस प्रकार का इसके इनिशियल रिजल्ट्स हमको ट्रायल्स में दिखाई दिए हैं, ये आने वाले समय के अंदर खाली भारत के ही लिए नहीं अपितु पूरे संसार के लिए कोविड के खिलाफ जंग में एक महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाए।
At present, 2DG is being used as an adjunct COVID therapy. 2 doses of 2DG can be given daily for 5 to 7 days. After examining the data of the medicine, the drug can be added to National COVID-19 Treatment Protocol. In the second wave of coronavirus, the need for oxygen has increased many-fold, and now there are indications of a third wave too. In such a situation, this indigenous drug developed by the Defense Research and Development Organization can help in the safe recovery of COVID patients as well as relieve some of the pressure on our health services. The production of this drug is being done by the associate company Dr. Reddy's Laboratories.
A Pune-based startup has developed a PPE kit ventilation technology for frontline COVID warriors with support from the Department of Science and Technology of the Government of India. This simple technique can provide great relief to the COVID warriors, especially those wearing PPE kits for long hours at a stretch. Let's take a look at this report to know how this simple innovation works.
Frontline workers putting up a fight during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic have made significant contributions to the society as a whole. This is especially true about healthcare workers who constantly offer their services even in the face of danger to their own lives. To protect themselves from the deadly coronavirus, healthcare workers wear personal protective clothing for several hours at a time. This apparel or PPE kit is extremely uncomfortable due to being airtight. It causes persistent sweating that does not dry up and increases the risk of skin diseases for its users. Now, a solution has been found for this problem by Pune-based startup What Technovations. The startup, incubated at RIIDL lab of Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, Mumbai, has developed a technology called Cov-Tech Ventilation System that can be very easily applied with a slight modification to a normal PPE kit. The ventilation system prevents excessive sweating inside the PPE kits. This innovation, supported by the National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board (NST-EDB) of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, can provide considerable relief to healthcare workers when they use the PPE kits. In this compact, economical and user-friendly device to provide a ventilation system for PPE suits, a small fan and a 12-volt battery is mounted on a belt that can be worn around the waist. The normal PPE kit is worn over this. 2 holes, one at the back near the waist and one on the top side to allow air to pass out, have to be made in the PPE kits. These holes are sealed by N95 level filters. The fan on the belt is taken out of the hole near the back, with the hole then being sealed with the N95 level filter. In this way, the fan moves as soon as the switch is turned on and fresh air reaches inside the PPE kit. The system automatically throws air every 100 seconds when turned on. This technique will keep healthcare workers not only well ventilated but also prevent possible fungal infections.
Take outside air, it will purify it and then it will pump it inside your PPE suit. So what will happen is that there is a slight positive pressure and a continuous airflow developed inside your PPE suit. All the hot air and the humid air of the body escapes through near the natural spaces available near the neck region. That also helps in reducing the face mist, the misting that happens on the face shields. So that is how this device works in general.
In addition to the grant and aid under the Nidhi program of the Department of Science and Technology, the Research Innovation Incubation Design Laboratory (RIIDL) of Sumaiya Vidya Vihar University has also provided financial support to develop this innovative solution. This technology is currently being made available by the startup as and when required. Efforts are also being made for mass production of the Cov-Tech Ventilation System.
And with that, time for a short break here on the program. There's lots more coming up ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Article 141 says that law declared by Supreme Court to be binding on all courts. The law declared by the Supreme Court shall be binding on all courts within the territory of India.
Welcome back once again. You're watching Science Monitor. COVID-19 is known to have many symptoms, side effects, and even long-term complications like lung fibrosis. As the manifestation of the disease differs from person to person, so it becomes very confusing for a layman to take the right action at the right time. So to get a clear picture on the nature of the disease and the alarming signs, we are joined today on the show by Dr. Naresh Dua, a critical care specialist at Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, New Delhi. Sir, namaskar. Welcome to Science Monitor.
Namaskar.
First of all, help us understand why COVID-19 affects people differently. So while some people have no symptoms, some have mild symptoms, some patients become very, very critical in a matter of few days. What is the reason behind?
You see, that all depends on the immunity of the person who is getting affected by the corona. So corona is affecting everyone the base way equally. If your immunity is good, so you will get well within 1 to 3 days with taking help of the only paracetamol. If you are diabetic, if you are old, and if your immunity is weak because of any disease, so the disease is going to prolong for weeks, and like you can say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and with the timely treatment you can avoid the adverse effect and complication and sequelae. Otherwise you can end up in the difficult problems.
Okay. So sir, how do doctors differentiate between which patient has mild symptoms or which one is severe? Is SpO2 level the only criteria, or are there some other parameters as well?
It's very thin line between going to mild to severe cases. This is a timeline of the corona. We have to decide when the patient is sleeping in the critical situation. The timeline of the corona is like this: on the 6th day, when the spike of the fever is coming and patient having a desaturation or SpO2 going down 94, falling to multiple times at up to 88, 90, 91, swinging in between below 94 and going up to 86. That is a critical time. This is right time to go to the hospital, and you have to contact to doctor as soon as possible. That is a time you have to come on the steroids and other supportive drugs that time, so the lung is not going to affect much more. So this is time, this is timeline.
Sir, COVID is also leading to lung fibrosis in some cases. What is the difference between COVID-induced lung fibrosis and fibrosis, which is triggered by several other factors?
Basically, lung fibrosis is a sequelae of the respiratory distress syndrome happened by the virus. So if you are preventing in beforehand, that's much more better. If it is not going to be prevent by any means, because patient landing late in the hospital or somebody ignored their disease. So once the lung fibrosis developed in the COVID patient, it is basically endothelial injuries. So much more thrombus are there. It's much more severe than the chronic interstitial lung disease. In the interstitial lung disease, it is the epithelial that is going to much more affected, and the enhancing in the later age of the life. While in the corona, once the fibrosis develops, it's very difficult to minimize the fibrosis, and it sustains and make the platelet level. So the injury caused by the virus is much more severe than the ILD.
So how do we tackle lung fibrosis in cases of COVID? And what kind of therapies, drugs are available for that?
Regarding lung fibrosis, as we say in the medicine, the prevention is the better cure. So you have to we have to catch the patient on the right time. On the 6th day, when the patient has the fever spike and the lungs starting damaging by the virus, so you start the steroid that time and the supportive drugs. If patient not coming to you that time, staying in the home isolation despite the desaturation. So we have to make audience sure that if the desaturation starts once, you have to run to the hospital or you have to take the specialist doctor's suggestions. You have not to take the medicine on your own. So the steroid and other supportive drugs going to minimize the fibrosis in the earlier course. If the fibrosis settle down, you see the disease going more than 3 weeks. The chances 60% to 80% for the fibrosis are much more. So we have to limit the disease in a minimum time. If the fibrosis develops, we give the antifibrotic drugs. Again, in the small doses, pulse therapy of the steroid is beneficial. Still, the things are not satisfying. So you have to go for the pulmonary rehabilitation program, where they will teach you how to have the good endurance for a long time despite a desaturation, how to maintain yourself in the small doses of the oxygen, how to carry the oxygen cylinder with yourself, but the life must go on, and they will show you how to rehabilitate yourself and how you can do your day-to-day work.
Talking about the second wave, which has gripped large parts of our country, sir, what kind of changes have you observed in COVID presentation this time?
Nowadays, the corona is presenting with so many atypical presentations. Earlier, it was coming like a tingling sensation in the throat, fever, running nose, something like this way. Now it's coming with a different presentation like abdominal pain, diarrhea, myalgia. So you have to be careful for every symptom. Even the headache is persisting more than 24 hours. You have to check for the BP and you have to ask to your doctor to go for the RT-PCR. So we cannot go by the typical presentation right now.
Okay. So if someone gets infected, sir, how should we supervise the disease and how should we look for alarming symptoms, and what is the right time? When should we talk to the specialists?
You see, this is 1 to 5 days is a crucial time we can prevent the corona in a well time with paracetamol and other supportive ginkgo and other therapies, water multivitamin therapy. And we have to do all the time vigilant with the oxygen saturation, ease of breathing and fever spikes. So it's going to be 6 days. We have to report to the doctor. They will give the medicine. If they want to start the steroid and other antibiotics, they will start on that way. Don't do the self-medication and try to be under the specialist control. So you can win the situation at any time.
Okay, sir. One last question from you. The second wave we've all seen has been devastating for many of us. The entire country was brought to its knees with this unprecedented crisis. And we all know for sure that this disease is not going to be over very soon. In fact, scientists have been cautioning us against a potential third wave. So how should we be preparing for this long fight?
In the corona time, we have to be very particular about our any symptom. Mild symptom, just like tingling in the throat, has to be taken care. And you have to touch in the medical practitioner who is knowing about the disease. So they can point out what the timeline virus is taking. They can do the right time investigations for you. what are the investigation required. If something happens to you, they will treat you and try to prevent all the complications happening to you, and we can minimize the things that way. We have to train our kids for using safe distancing, mask, sanitization from the earlier part. Then going to other part, once the anybody in the family having the fever, you have to do the proper care by isolating and keeping eye all the time on the pulse rate, oxygen saturation, fever spikes patterns, and you have to consult a doctor. Don't go to the only taking self medication or chemist. These are things are where you are starting in the earlier part, the steroid and antibiotic. That's not the right choice, because self-medication making you worse. When the body is fighting with the virus, you are taking steroid and you are suppressing the things. So you have to be very careful. Don't do self-medication. Fear of impending doom, underlying maybe the news of near and dear death, and other one, it's always making you disturbed. So you have to always see the good videos, read the good newspaper, and just like a positive thinking has to be there. Positive thinking in sense that you have to minimize your worries. It's say like in Hindi, chinta chita saman hai, and in Gita it has been said you have to leave your worries on the God. Always read the good books, always have the good company, think the positive one, take good nutrition. Don't think about negative thoughts. Even the things are not happening in your way, despite doing all the things. If you land up more than 3 weeks because of something and fibrosis happens, the role of the family is always paramount. They will support you like anything, because you sometimes you feel mentally depressed and agitated. The families are always making backbone, and the rehabilitation programs they will support you all the time, and the family will propagate you to the active role in the life.
Thank you, sir, for joining us on the program today and sharing your perspective, in fact, giving us and our viewers those valuable insights and suggestions. Pleasure having you on the show.
Dhanyavad.
So with that, time for another quick break on the program. There's still more coming up ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Article 141 says that law declared by Supreme Court to be binding on all courts. The law declared by the Supreme Court shall be binding on all courts within the territory of India.
Welcome back once again. You're watching Science Monitor. Time now to take a quick look at some other developments that have made news in the field of science and technology in our special segment, Science Express.
A startup supported by the Department of Science and Technology of the Government of India has developed inexpensive test kits for early diagnosis of COVID-19 in rural and resource-deficient areas. It is a rapid antigen test kit prepared by the startup Patanjali Pharma, incubated by IIT Mumbai. The COVID-19 test kit is priced at a low price of Rs 100. Patanjali Pharma was supported under DST's Center for Augmenting War with the COVID-19 health crisis, Kavach. The test kit is based on examination of samples taken from the nose and saliva and gives results in 10 to 15 minutes. The startup plans to rapidly conduct antigen tests in rural and remote areas starting June 2021 using these affordable test kits. This kit will also be effective in clinics and areas where pathology labs are not available. These indigenous resources can be helpful in early diagnosis of COVID-19 and in controlling the pandemic. Scientists at the Indian Institute of Astrophysics have developed a new method based on machine learning by which a particular star can be identified from a star cluster with greater accuracy and ease. This method can be used on star clusters of all ages, distances, and densities. This method has been used to identify hundreds of additional stars for 6 different clusters up to 18,000 light-years away. Studying stars and how they evolve is the cornerstone of astronomy. But understanding them is difficult since they are observed at different ages. That is why a star cluster is a great place to study stars. Since clusters are part of the Milky Way galaxy, there are many stars between the clusters and us. It is not easy to identify and select the stars of a particular cluster. Astronomers at IIA used the European Space Agency's recently released Gaia Early Data Release 3, which gives very accurate information about the brightness, parallax and proper motion of more than 1 billion stars with an accuracy of 1 milli-arcsecond to pick out the stars that are cluster members. Scientists understood the complex relationship between these parameters using a machine learning technique called probabilistic random forest. This new artificial intelligence-based algorithm is expected to accelerate this process. According to scientists, lightning might be helpful in clearing pollutants from the air. It was observed during an airplane flight that lightning creates high amounts of oxidants. These oxidants have the ability to purify the atmosphere by reacting with pollutants such as methane. It was already a known fact that lightning could produce oxidants, but the phenomenon was never observed directly. In 2012, a NASA jet recorded this phenomenon while flying over Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas amidst stormy clouds. The devices on board the NASA jet measured the combined concentrations of two oxidants, hydroxyl radicals, that is OH, and the corresponding hydroperoxyl radical HO2 in the clouds. After the lightning, the amount of these molecules in the air increased to a great extent. All of this happened very quickly, which was later confirmed by laboratory tests, and it was concluded that lightning and thunderclap could actually produce a lot of OH and HO2. On an average, 1,800 such storms arise all over the world at any time, and it was estimated that thunderclap is responsible for 2 to 16% of all atmospheric oxidants. According to recent environmental studies, a part of Greenland's ice is on the verge of extinction. Researchers have warned that if the entire sheet of Greenland ice melts rapidly, seawater levels around the world could rise by up to 7 meters. It is also expected to increase global warming due to disruptions of major ocean currents, monsoon, rainforest, wind systems, and rainfall patterns. Researchers at Germany's Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research and the Arctic University Norway have deduced from data from a drainage basin, which shows that the ice sheet of central western Greenland has reached a tipping point. Researchers have been carefully studying the rate of melting of the ice sheet and the change in the height of the ice sheet over the last 140 years. These institutions have now proposed close monitoring of the Greenland ice sheet to keep an eye on the situation. The study has been published in the international research journal PNAS.
Well, so that's it from us in this edition of Science Monitor. You can send us your feedback and suggestions through email. Our email ID is news@vigyanprasar.gov.in. In fact, you can also write to us. Our address is Vigyan Prasar, 5th floor, Prithvi Bhavan, Lodi Road, New Delhi, 111003. So we'll take your leave now. See you again same time next week. Until then, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your families, and continue to think scientifically.